And I always think about this when you are parenting and you're parenting an 8-year-old, you remember your emotions when you were 8 years old, and you can relate to them in some sense. And then you get to be 13, you really remember puberty. We all remember puberty. We remember like all of that. So you can relate to that for sure. No one can relate to or remember your emotional state when you're an infant. So that part of it was really scary. And for that reason, I just felt the need to be around as much as possible to try to figure this out.
Welcome to the Dad Central Show, hosted by Ed Gow Jr. and Drew Solon. We know dads want to see their kids succeed, but they don't always know how to get there. This show gives dads the tools they need to raise confident and successful kids.
What is up, everybody? It's Ed Gow Jr. here with
Drew Solon.
Up Dad Central, aren't you?
Yes, I am from Dad Central. This is the Dad Central Show. So yes, Drew Solon, co-host of the Dad Central Show.
Oh, there he's got a full title now. And let's talk about the Dad Central Show. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's positive impact. Father's Day is coming. Father's Day is coming.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this more because, you know, I've got 5 kids now. We've got a busy house. And do I want a break or do I want time with my kids? I'm curious what our dads out there want. Do you want, or do you want both? Can you maximize? Can you get a little bit of time for yourself and that time with your kids that is, fulfilling and enriching? So I'm still trying to figure it out. I know it's coming up very quick. So, but I also don't know what others might have planned for me. So you never know what to expect. So I don't know. I'm kind of more curious about dads out there. What do you do for Father's Day? Tell us.
Actually, especially because our YouTube engagement is going up and up, I'm thinking we should do a poll on YouTube, or ask that question on our YouTube page for all the people that come to it. And hey, thank you for all the people that are coming. Tell other people about it. But yeah, do dads want, what was the question you said? I love the question. What did you say?
Do you want time for yourself, or do you want time just with your kids doing something that you want to do with your kids? Which is it? Or is it a combination of both? I'm just curious. No, I mean, I am in the thick of, a brand new baby. She was 4 weeks old yesterday. And, that first part is like, it's like a monsoon of like change, right? Everything's changing. Your sleep's out the window, your kids are getting adjusted to it. There's, your things change with your partner, and there's so much that goes on. And it's like, man, like as an example, just this past weekend, I had a moment of like, I don't know if I even want this. Like, this is crazy. It's so challenging. There's so much going on emotionally with the kids, and you're like, it's almost too much. And then I had a moment this morning where it's like the family that you dreamed of, and the way that they're getting along, and they're, singing in the back, and we're having a great time. We're laughing, and you're like, what's better than this? Right. So I think you can easily experience those polar opposites, almost from moment to moment, and it can be hard at times. But I'm just curious. Some dads be like, I need a break from that. I want Father's Day to just go and do my thing. And other dads, but man, give me more of my kids. So again, which is it, or is it something in between? Just curious.
You're just stamping on it that fatherhood is a journey. It's a journey. There's twists, there's turns. Sometimes you have to go through. Sometimes you got to go left. Sometimes you got to go right. Sometimes you got to go over, and then sometimes you got to go under. So it's a multifaceted journey, and I definitely think one would go offline. We're gonna have to see if we can do a poll or create something on one of our social media platforms, or a few of them, asking that question.
Well, if you're listening to the show right now, just reach out to us. Podcast at dadcentral.ca. Let us know what you do for Father's Day. Let us know your tips or tricks or the things that jump out to you as like, this is the best Father's Day ever. I'd love to hear anything that you want to share with us about Father's Day. So let's start the conversation and hear from each other. And then we'd love to actually share some of those things on the show down the road. So if you got a comment, send it in, and maybe we'll talk more about your example and can inspire other dads because of what you're doing. So we'd love to hear from you. But
we have a new friend today.
We do. And I mean, it's really cool to be able to have this conversation with him and to hear, his experience as a father, but also some of the challenges that he's gone through and the example that he had for his fatherhood and how he's making that, I guess, a lasting legacy in his current family. And so today we're actually talking to Penn Holderness, and he is of the Holderness family. And Kim and Penn have been married for 16 years. For 7 of those years, they have chronicled their marriage and their family with funny music videos, vlogs, skits, and a podcast. So, the experience that I just talked about, that was private, right? My family experienced those moments. But their family is in the public eye because their family is actually out there for you to see. So their videos have resulted in over 1 billion views and 4.5 million followers across social media. Imagine 4.5 million people watching my family or your family, but that's what's happening for them watching their family. So Penn and Kim have honed their storytelling skills with 25 combined years in the TV news business. Today, they own their own company, Holderness Family Productions, where Kim is the chief executive officer and Penn is the chief creative officer. As well as creating content for their channels, they also work alongside brands and agencies to shape product launches and marketing campaigns. Their book about improving communication in marriage was released March 30th, 2021. So it's going to be a great conversation. We touched on this in the show at Penn and Kim. They live in Raleigh, North Carolina, with their children, Lola and Penn Charles, and their fluffy dog, Sunny. So looking forward to having Penn on the show and hearing what he's got to share with us.
Penn Holderness, so good to see you. So good to have you here. So good to allow you to get something down your throat before you came live with us. How's the day going?
Good. I just ate lunch in 4 minutes. Does this sound familiar to you guys?
Yes.
It sounds like a dad who's got a full plate and needs to maximize his time.
That's right.
Excellent. So we're so blessed to have you here today. You and your wife and your family do outstanding things, but we want to talk about your dad journey. So how did that dad journey start? How was it? Take us back to when you first became a father.
When I first became a father, we were in New York City. At the time, I have a great relationship with my firstborn, my daughter. I think I have a great one with both of them, but my wife was working at Inside Edition at the time. So wow. She was a news magazine reporter, and she was traveling all over the country, sometimes even the world, to do these stories. And as soon as she was able, she went back to work. I was being paid by ESPN not to work, which is a long story, but basically they were looking for a certain type of person that I'd signed a contract onto, and they changed what they were looking for, and they wanted more of like a cookie cutter Bristol, Connecticut news anchor, sports anchor, which I'm not really super into, and my wife didn't want to move to Bristol. So my contract lapsed over the first 6 months of my daughter's life, and I had a lot of free time. So Kim went back to work, and I was essentially the Manny for my daughter for the better part of her first year on Earth.
Right. Wow.
Well, I mean, the first part of it, getting paid to be at home, most days, but hey, how do I get that deal? Sign me up for that. But for someone who probably is pretty ambitious, had some career goals, and wanted to move forward, what was that process like for you, and how did you adjust to that?
I hated it. It was, I would use the word emasculating. I would use the word frustrating. I did not want to not work. I wanted my career to be moving forward, not backward. But I just quickly realized that I wasn't a good fit. I was a good fit for ABC Sports, which is who signed me up. Then when they ceased to exist and moved over to ESPN, I wasn't a good fit for them. They wanted a certain type of person, and I just didn't feel comfortable being that type of person. And it's not their fault. It's just we weren't a good fit. And so, in the time that I wasn't looking after Lola in this tiny New York apartment, I was looking for jobs and trying to find a way, through the future to be able to provide for my family. Not that my wife can't do that as well, but I certainly wanted to contribute.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Penn. I want to ask you, when it seems as though transformation happened to you in regards to fatherhood. You were so focused to do career. Mm-hmm. You remember the moment it transformed, saying, hey, fatherhood seems to be taking a little bit more of my life?
It was pretty instant. I mean, when she was born, there are books about it, and I'm sure podcasts about the bonding that happens in the first few days, or like the moment that this child comes into the earth. And I mean, the first night, mom does most of the heavy lifting, but she was kind of a picky sleeper. And she couldn't sleep on Kim because all she wanted to do was feed, and somebody's got to sleep. So I put her like right here on the first night. And I mean, Kim slept and I stayed up. I was lucky. We had one of those like televisions in the armchairs. That's how old our hospital was. But it was like there was a great Duke UNC game on that night, and I still remember it. We watched it together.
Are you a Dookie or a UNCer?
My granddad played for UNC.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, Duke
That's
can eat
clear.
farts.
Look at the color. Look at the color of his shirt right now. It's UNC all the way.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm kidding. I know a lot of great people who went to Duke. I'm really good friends with them, except for 2 days out of the year, and then they can eat my farts.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if does Canada have an appreciation for this rivalry? It's probably yeah.
I'm big time. Like I'm a big time college sports fan. Like I some people do, but I'm always a bigger fan of college sports than pro sports.
Think Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, that's about what it is. Anyway, the bonding was immediate. I had all the time off in the world. Kim had some time off as well, but I had the ability to, come in at night and be like a night nurse, be the day nurse, like be everything that you would want a dad to be. It's why, like, I always, anytime anybody wants opinions about paternity leave, I'm very firm on the necessity for that almost. Not necessarily for the mom, but for the dad. Like if you do that, you're making an investment in the commitment that you're going to make to your child for the rest of your life. And I felt like I just lucked out into the ability to have that kind of, really 6 months of paternity leave to be a part of raising her as an infant.
Well, since you brought that up, I mean, can you talk about how important you think that time was, both for you as a dad and for your child, and how that's led to the relationship you have now?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely changed. It changed my priorities. That's obvious. Like you're doing something for yourself. You're doing something for yourself and your wife, and then now you're doing everything, literally everything, for your children for that first bit. To the point that it actually takes some time when they get to be my age of learning how to flip back and do some stuff for yourself. But at that time, like there was definitely a shift in perspective on what was important. There was, you read about it in books, there was this like chemical bonding that I think you share with your child. Seeing them smile, seeing them have, facial expressions that remind you a little bit of yourself. And with that came some fear because, and I always think about this, when you are parenting and you're parenting an 8-year-old, you remember your emotions when you were 8 years old, and you can relate to them in some sense. And then you get to be 13, you really remember puberty. We all remember puberty. We remember like all of that. So you can relate to that for sure. No one can relate to or remember your emotional state when you're an infant. So that part of it was really scary. And for that reason, I just felt the need to be around as much as possible to try to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to jump in a bit about you saying how important paternity leave is for dads. Can you go a little bit deeper on that? Because we haven't had a chance to talk about it too much, but you sound very passionate about it. I'd just like you to share a little bit deeper on that.
This is your child's first moments on earth. And while the belief is that it doesn't really affect you in a way that you can remember, the idea of imprinting is true in at least every mammal, I think. Like you're leaving an imprint on that child, and that child is leaving, I believe, also an imprint on you and the person that you want to be. And things change so incredibly quickly when they're infants. So if you have a week to hang out with this baby and it's the first week, here's what's going to happen. The baby's going to take their first crap and it's going to be disgusting and gigantic. It's called the first meconium. And if you weren't around for that, it's like tar and it fills up an entire diaper, sometimes sneaks outside the diaper and is all over you and the person who takes it's your first dump. They take a huge first dump. So that's what happens on the first day. You're always going to remember that.
Yeah.
The next 6 days, like there's no manual and you leave the hospital and you're like, oh God, where is even your wife is too? Like, where is everyone? How are we supposed to do this? And you don't have all of the resources that you had before. So you're literally writing your own manual that first week. And I think a lot of dads have been through that part, but really it's this like fog where you're trying to make sure you get enough sleep. You probably don't remember as much as you could because you're not well rested. And then after the first week, you move into the like, okay, what's our sleep schedule going to be? And then it usually takes 3 to 4 months before you get into like a normal space where you're sleeping through the night. So it is an incredibly disruptive, schedule-wise moment for definitely for the wife, but there's no reason why the husband shouldn't be part of this as well. Because as you're doing this, you're learning how to cope with and how to write this manual that you have for the child. And I don't think that the manual should be specifically written by the mom all the time. In fact, I wouldn't want to if I were the dad, because down the road, I think you're always going to be the guy who wasn't there when they wrote the manual.
Yeah, well, and I think that there are maybe many, men and women who have had that experience that you just talked about. The dad wasn't there when the manual was written and they had some impact. So I think it's a really important point. And if you're listening, then I'd say, if you have this opportunity, take it while you can, because I think that's very important. I'm actually in the middle of what you're talking about right now. So I've got 5 kids. The 5th one just came April 23rd. And so she's a little over 4 weeks old. But now with 5, and we're also in a blended family situation. So there's a whole lot of dynamics going on. So it's certainly very challenging. And then I think about you, and obviously fast forward now, you said your daughter is 16, your son is 13. And so, but you're also incredibly, I would imagine, busy. You've got a lot going on. You've got your career, which hopefully you're happy with where you're at and the things that are happening now. It can probably be very challenging. So is there if you were looking back, anything that you've learned through that time that you maybe even apply now, or even that you think of that's tremendously valuable to help somebody who is maybe in the thick of it, that could manage or navigate those times better?
The one thing I would say is that every period is equally great for its own unique reasons. I think it's very hard to remember that first month as being great because you're not getting sleep. Honestly, you may be in better shape this time around because you've got zone defense. I mean, if you've got 5 kids, I'm assuming some of them are older than 8, right? Like you've got some older kids.
12, twin 10-year-olds, a 7-year-old.
Okay. So the 12 is probably I would guess is taking on either some sort of maternal or paternal responsibilities with this child. Am I right?
A little bit.
Okay. A little bit, like enough to be like, hey, we can
trade off. Here you go. Here's the baby. Hold the baby for a little bit. Absolutely.
That's a huge plus though, right?
Absolutely. Huge plus.
I think that each stage has its just great, wonderful things that you wouldn't trade for anything in the world, including that first bit. They open their eyes for the first time. They smile. They say a name. They make a noise that you call it a word, even though it's not a word. They fart and you think it's funny. They see you smile and they mirror your smile, even though they're not smiling. You don't care. It's like the greatest smile ever. And then when that goes away, you're kind of sad to miss that. But then, oh my gosh, they're walking. They're giggling even louder. They are, they're exploring. And then you miss that part. But oh my gosh, now they can wipe their own butts. And then so that's its own stage. And it goes all the way into, here's what I'll tell anybody. It goes into puberty. Teenage years, there is a stigma that, once your daughter's a teenager, better watch out. This has been arguably my favorite phase for my kids, has been their young adulthood. So the one thing I will say is if you allow yourself to enjoy it all, it will all be enjoyable.
Yeah, well said.
I want to ask you, what's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome in your dad journey?
Oh, probably most recently, just when you learn about the emotional lives of kids who become teenagers, I think it's exercising empathy instead of trying to fix things. So if your kid has a tough day at school, instead of being like, who's the kid who did this to you? Who's the parent who did this to you? I'm going to go to their house and I'm going to Papa Bear this situation. Kids don't want that. they want you to understand that it sucks and say, man, I'm sorry, that sucks. And that's never been my personality. I've been a fix it kind of guy. And so that has taken me several years to learn. And I don't know how much damage I did before by not doing that and making them think that if there was ever anything wrong, that here I come to save the day. Letting them sort of sit in the suck, if you will, has been a challenge for me.
What was the moment or the situation that brought about that realization that you said, oh, you know what? I need to not fix it. Either the awareness for yourself, but also recognition of the difference it makes for your kids.
Well, they get noticed, pointed out. Sometimes I wouldn't say teased, but sometimes razzed a little bit for the fact that they have a YouTube family. That's by the way, that's its own set of problems that's on me. And like, I'm sure I've screwed my kids up in some way because of this. We've tried to give them as normal a life as possible, but there is no doubt that all three of us have screwed our kids up. And that's a leading candidate for how I've done it. But instead of, I remember part of that was like, I think I was trying to defend myself and the career choices that I'd made by trying to fix it, instead of saying, man, that really sucks. That's not fair. I'm sorry that you're going through that. And that was a situation, I'd say about a year and a half ago. And it was interesting because we've been able to have more open conversations about it since then, about growing up and about being a part of a unique family that we hadn't had before, because I was just going straight to trying to fix it and saying, this isn't a problem. I'm going to solve it right now.
So what difference did that make, you think, for your kids as you're making that shift?
I think that they're more willing to express themselves by a long shot, both of them, like whether it happened to them or not, like seeing that this is a place where your feelings are not discounted by us going and trying to solve them. Your feelings matter. They're valid, and we should all sit here and learn from them. Yeah.
I just think that's such an important and powerful point, especially for dads, I feel, right? I think dads by nature, we are the fixers, right? We got to take this, we got to make it right, and we got to move on and make sure our kids have what they need. And so I remember we had Jim White. He's a coach for parents, and in particular focusing on the teen years and talking about how important that connection with teens are. And empathy was one of his, 3 foundational skills. So I just, certainly from your lived experience, it's certainly very powerful, but even what Jim was sharing about that empathy piece, being able to have them feel safe to share and open up. And I imagine most dads want that, but at the same time, they have this challenge of wanting to fix. And so what it started with making that shift to just allowing them to open up and not fix it. That sucks. I'm really sorry you're going through that, and then working together. So certainly very powerful. Ed,
yeah,
turn over to you.
I'm loving the energy. And we're coming down to the end pretty soon. So I want to make sure I get 1 or 2 conversation pieces in. I want to ask Penn, what do you believe is the most important practice dads need to work on to build strong, healthy relationships with their children?
Being present, not just there, but there and engaged when there's family time. So, this should go without saying, but put your phones down. If you're watching a game, turn off the game. Get away from as many screens as possible and just be there, because the act of simply being there is greater than anything that you could do or say or show off, or, making them laugh is great, but it's not as important as just being there.
Are you a dad who feels like you're juggling a million things at once? Balancing work, family, and personal goals can be overwhelming. But what if there was a solution? That's why we created our new fatherhood community called Dad Mentor. For over 20 years, Dad Central has built practical tools to help dads. We understand the challenges you face and provide the support you need to thrive. The biggest complaint we hear from dads is there's no dedicated support for their specific needs. but not anymore. Our new community, called Dad Mentor, is here to transform your fatherhood experience. Imagine feeling in control, staying calm and patient when your children misbehave. Picture yourself connected to your children, guiding them with confidence and watching them succeed. When you join Dad Mentor, you'll have access to a community of like-minded dads committed to their dad journey, just like you. You'll also get the Dad's Roadmap. This is a step-by-step plan to help you go from unsure to unstoppable as a dad. Monthly masterclasses and Q&A sessions. You'll get answers and know exactly what to do straight from experts. Monthly group meetups that connect dads over common topics. A dad's resource library. Curated webinars, podcasts, or guides built by Dad Central to help you grow as a parent. And finally, you'll also get exclusive members-only offers and events. Now, many dads do try to do this fatherhood thing alone, only to find themselves trapped in frustration and strained relationships. Then they may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs, alcohol, or other distractions, leaving their family and their own well-being at risk. We don't want you to reach that point of regret. Take steps to invest in you and your family today. Join Dad Mentor and go from stressed, tired, and overwhelmed to confident, calm, and connected. Join us today by going to dadcentral.ca/dads.
So Penn, you strike me as someone who has been very thoughtful or intentional about being a dad. So I'm just curious, would you agree with that? Do you feel like you're very intentional, and where does that come from?
Well, I had a great dad. He passed away last year. He had pretty bad dementia for the 4 years before that. So that when he did die, he was relieved. People around him were relieved. Alzheimer's sucks. I don't have to get into that. It's terrible. Mm-hmm. But before that, he was a preacher. And when you're a preacher, you work 20 hours a day sometimes. Sometimes you don't sleep. You have your family that you have to raise, and then you have a church community of people who are in almost constant need of your guidance. And that is what you sign up for, and it's what your family signs up for. So I didn't see my dad that much. But what I did see of my dad was the person that I was just describing how I would like to be. Was an incredibly engaged, present father who was intentional about being a parent. Mm-hmm. He was intentional about certain things like honesty, quality of time when you had it. So when we were together, we were doing something usually pretty cool, but it wasn't so cool that took away from the one-on-one relationship that you were having with that person. For him, a big part of our cultivation of relationships was through sports. And it was usually trying to either watch something together, play something together, or talk about it together. And that has absolutely transferred over to myself and my son. And the other part was fishing, which he was a better fisherman than me. And it's harder to find fish that in an ocean that's getting increasingly disgusting. So we've moved on to just like amping up basketball more, where I'm like coaching his AAU team. So that's what I do with him. With my daughter, I kind of coach and travel with her for a tennis team. For me, those have been ways that you can speak the language across every one of these eras, whether it's being a toddler, a kid, a teenager, a young adult, where you can make a connection with that person through all of those eras and still be there for them. So part of my intentionality is taking what my dad taught me and trying to do it, and also having like a thread that goes through the ages. And for me and my dad, it was sports. And I guess it's kind of the case with both of my kids as well.
I got to get this one last thing in. You have a very active existence. What do you do to balance, and what do you do to invest in yourself?
I play a lot of tennis. Okay. And I've just taken up pickleball. Like I'm looking for time efficient stress relief. Yeah. And so golf took too long. golf took way too long. But we have a tennis court and a pickleball court that's like walking distance from here. And I've made a bunch of friends who all, by the way, are dads who I think are doing it for all of the same reasons. And it's a pretty great stress relief in that sense. I'll be honest, like I enjoy my job. I like it. Like I like doing it. I don't like it more than spending time with my family, but I think there were times when I needed more of a stress relief in my life. And for me, it's like the tennis helps. Honestly, my kids are at the age where they're a stress relief for me now. Like I see them come in the door and I know they're going to do something funny or cool. So that's great. Spend time off as well.
Excellent. Drew?
Yeah, I mean, so many good things. Really appreciate you sharing, and of course, I'm really sorry to hear about the passing of your father. But it sounds like there's a tremendous legacy that you are carrying on. I really love the point in particular about finding something common that actually connects the different generations, right? So I'd imagine while he was around, he would connect over your children being involved in sports and then your involvement in their sports. So that's really, really powerful. And I think a great lesson to take away, because I'm always looking for things to connect with my kids, and 5 of them, they're all unique. They're all different. But something that can tie us all together, I think, is really powerful. And, that's a great thing that for dads to do that is very, I think, tangible, doable. You can go and find, okay, what's one thing I can do to connect with my kids? So I love that point. I'm not sure if I have a final question other than I do need to get this in because my kids love watching your videos. And in particular, they told me I had to tell you this. So they love your Costco video and they want you to make another one.
That was hilarious.
All right. So that request is coming in.
Okay.
And then my one daughter, Michaela, I'm not sure if I should tell you this, but maybe we'll get it in there because I know you've got a great partner, but she says, Kim's really funny. I love her in the videos. So anyway, so just wanted to share that from my kids. They love watching the videos. They love the work that you're doing and bringing a lot of joy and a lot of fun to a lot of other families through the work that you're doing. So from my perspective, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. And Kim is the funny one. People don't realize that. Like that's common knowledge around this house.
Where can you find out more about your family?
Beg your pardon?
Where can people find out more about your family?
Oh, so, I mean, we have a website. It's theholdernessfamily.com. If you go to holdernessfamily.com, that's like my actual family's mailing list, which is really funny. We've been trying to like buy that for my extended family, and people go to that all the time and they're like, why am I getting a spreadsheet of your mailing list? But if you go on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, we're pretty active on all those pages. It's sort of where we live, so you can find us there as well.
Well, Penn, we want to thank you and your family for what you have done, are doing, and will be doing. And if there's anything we can do to help what you do, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
All right. Have a great day.
Pleasure. Thanks very much, Penn. Take care. All the best to you and your family.
Yeah. So, and let us know if you need anything else. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Penn.
All right. That was a beautiful conversation. And yeah, so much. Let me just get Drew proper here. There we go. So that was a lot of high energy. That was quick, but a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, what I loved is what I picked up on is he sounded very intentional. He talked about, you read in the books or you do in these things. So he's invested a lot, in his fatherhood journey, as well as, navigating some significant challenges. He talked about that new fatherhood journey and, being thrust into, I think he called it the Manny role. He talked about, the feelings he went through. He said it was emasculating. So there's a lot to process as a new dad, but he also talked about how crucial that time was. And so it's not easy, but it's worth it is my takeaway. And it's something that looking back 16 years later, he wouldn't trade. He would actually encourage others to go through that. And he said he also felt, I think, grateful for that experience. It was kind of thrust upon him. He might not have chosen it himself, but looking back, it's highly valuable. So I think that's an interesting part of it. And of course, now his family and the visibility and how that impacts on his children. And that would be hard also. He's learned an important lesson though, which I think is great for me because my children are approaching the teenage years and I want to be able to connect with them. I want to be able to create space for them so they'll be able to share. And his learned experience says, or lived experience says, you can't fix it for them. You got to create that space so they can share and open up and know that it's okay that they're going through something hard, and you just empathize. You're not going to fix it. So, I mean, there's more, but in the quick conversation, lots of energy, but I think a tremendous amount of value.
Yeah, well, the first thing I get from it is we have to have him back because there's so much more, and he has quite the schedule, family. Like he does have a lot of things going on, but I love the relationship with him and his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And how the legacy is continuing with the relationship that he had with his dad from his younger. And again, condolences on his father passing away, but he's continuing it,
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, not every father has that.
You're right. Not every father has that, and it's a tremendous benefit to have someone you can look to as an example or have lived that experience. I could say I didn't really have that, right? I had an early childhood experience that created more trauma than necessarily comfort or even some intentionality. And I think that's why I'm really passionate about our new project called Dad Mentor, because it's going to be providing that type of support for fathers, whether you've had a great example in your life, and maybe they're not in your life anymore, or whether in particular, if you haven't had a great example, but you're looking for some support, you're looking for some guidance, you're looking for another person, another dad or dads to kind of point you in the right direction, because your Dad Mentor is exactly that. It's a community of like-minded men that are coming together and supporting each other in the journey. And so I'm really passionate about seeing Dad Mentor, impact men and provide that safe space for them to connect with others and get that guidance. Very practical, step-by-step knowledge. I got this challenge. What's my solution? And then they can go and apply it to their life. So if you are curious to learn more about Dad Mentor, please go to dadcentral.ca/dads. And you're going to learn all about Dad Mentor. It's a community for dads by dads, and it's going to help you be the dad that you want to be and make the connection with your children. So looking forward to that and having people come and join us in that experience.
Okay. And I also just you were reading my alleged mind, also how Penn made time to take time to be with other fathers.
Mm-hmm.
That community aspect, with all the stuff he has going on, he makes sure he's intentional about it. And of course, it involves sports, but it's at least a community building thing where he just gets ready just to be a dad and just be himself. And whether it's on the tennis court or the pickleball court, he's intentional with that. But fantastic. Well, let's close it off. The Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. Let's hear from you. Email us podcast at dadcentral.ca, and then website address Dad Central. I'm messing up today. Listen to the podcast at dadcentral.ca/podcast. That Penn just put all this energy in. I've got to slow down a bit. And then website with a pile of resources, dadcentral.ca. Thank you so much. We love your feedback. We want to hear more of it. Thank you for all the people that are coming to the YouTube page and the podcast page, and especially all the people checking out our YouTube shorts. Appreciate it. So remember to give yourself grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and we'll see you soon. Take care.